Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here in person, joining us online, or watching this later. We hope that you are having a blessed Ramadan and that you'll stay around with us for those who are here for an iftar, which means it's going to be a very rapid talk today. And then we will have a very long time for questions afterward. So we are so immensely grateful for you and for you being here with us at the American Center of Research. My name is Pierce Paul Kreisman, and it's my pleasure to serve as the executive director. Tonight, we welcome Khaled Al-Bashaireh, who is a professor of archaeometry in the Department of Archaeology at Yarmouk University, where he currently serves as dean of the Faculty of Archaeology and Anthropology. And for reasons unknown to me, we have an exceedingly strong Tucson contingent in the room tonight. He received his doctorate in archaeological sciences from the University of Arizona, and I think we have 6 people in the room who either lived in or currently live in Tucson, which is amazing. So, with that very short introduction, I don't want to thieve the time from you, sir. We are so grateful for you being here tonight, and please come take it away.
Many thanks, dear Krisman, for the introduction and having me here today. My lecture sheds light on the Byzantine Umm el-Jimal's chronology using the radiocarbon dating technique. This research is part of the el-Jimal project that was led by the late Bert de Vries, who was the key supporter for me, and now directed by Daryl Roll and Elizabeth Ozinga. I would also like to thank Yarmouk University and the Humboldt Association for funding the research and the analysis. First, I will start with an introduction to el-Jimal. The el-Jimal archaeological site is located in the semi-arid basaltic plateau, northeastern part of Jordan, near the border with Syria, and on a side road joining the Via Nova Triana, which passes about 6 kilometers to the west of the site. el-Jimal, which has an unknown ancient name, belonged to the bishopric of Busra, situated a few kilometers to its north. It is considered the most important site in eastern Jordan built with black basalt stones by corbelling techniques. The el-Jimal site was settled by the Nabataeans, Romans, Byzantines, and Umayyads from the 1st to the 8th century AD. The site began to grow with the construction of military structures during the early and late Roman period. While it was converted to domestic and commercial uses with reduced presence during the early Byzantine period, specifically the 5th century AD. It prospered during the late Byzantine period, where it witnessed a peak in the construction of houses, reservoirs, churches, and its population reached its zenith, about 10,000 inhabitants. Prosperity continued during the Umayyad period, where numerous structures were maintained and renovated. Daryl Roll from this place mentioned that the south church of the Twin Church was built during the Umayyad period. The city has about 150 houses forming several complexes, which are distributed in 3 areas in the site: southwest, southeast, and northeast, while the northwest area lacks houses. The slide shows house number 13 with a ventilation screen that usually separates the family space from that of animals. After the destruction of the city, mainly by the earthquake of 749 AD, it was abandoned and when the Druze Arabs nomads moved into the site and repaired and modified many houses and reservoirs for their domestic uses. The Druze left the site during the 1930s, while the Masa'id tribe left it during early 1970s. In addition to the studies of the Department of Antiquities of Jordan, two main archaeological studies of el-Jimal were conducted. Firstly, the Princeton University Archaeological Expedition to Syria, led by Howard Crosby Butler, conducted an architectural survey at el-Jimal in January in 1905. Secondly, the Calvin College restarted in 1972 the el-Jimal project, which was led by the late Pierre de Vries. It included extensive architectural preservation and archaeological investigations. This research was carried out in collaboration with the el-Jimal project, where the house 1718 and the three churches were a prime focus for the project. The idea of the research is mainly based on that the dating of churches and other structures of el-Jimal was based on stylistic comparison, architectural elements, and inscriptions out of context. This needs to be supported by other possible absolute dating techniques. Here we use the radiocarbon method to date cement materials of a plaster or mortar that usually have organic materials suitable for C14 dating. This slide shows the production technology of the lime cement. Here, the technology begins with burning the limestone, which is composed of calcium carbonate, which releases carbon dioxide, and leaving the lime or the quicklime. This lime, when water is added to it, it forms a slaked lime. And this slaked lime makes the paste, which usually to it added sand, charcoal, and other pieces. And it is applied to the structures. And then it sits and hardens. So any material that we found here that can be dated like charcoal or trees or any organic material, when it is dated, it can give us the date of the construction of the house or the structure that we are examining. For domestic architecture, as I said, the city has 150 houses of 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 floors. They were dated by Butler to the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th century AD, based on stylistic comparisons to other houses in Hauran region. In this lecture, I will present one case study of dating domestic houses, the house 1718. The house located in the southeast part of the el-Jimal site. It is one of the largest domestic complexes. It is formed of 4 floors and about 20 rooms and animal mangers. It has a large central courtyard of about 400 square meters, at least 5 entrances, a beautiful double arch window supported by a central column, and walls are plastered, massive tower and stairwells and a large reservoir. Butler believed that the complex has 2 separate and distinct domestic buildings. But in 2012, the conservation projects of the el-Jimal project of the house discovered a doorway connecting the buildings, demonstrating that it is a single mixed-use complex. Therefore, it was called the House 1718 complex. Although the final interpretation of these results is not finalized, the data suggests that the house was changed from a dwelling home to an administrative complex. Recently, Al-Shurman et al. 1917 argued that the house was used to host travelers or pilgrims. Determining the construction of the house is complicated because of absence of inscriptions or datable materials. In addition, the house was probably remodeled during the late 7th century AD or during the early decade of the 20th century because of the Druze. Butler suggested that most of the residences at el-Jimal could be dated to the 5th and 6th century AD. To the contrary, he dated the house to no later than the mid-2nd century AD by comparing the house to other houses in the Horan region. Nagav in 1977, without solid argument, considered the house a Nabataean construction. However, the results of the two soundings located in the west part of the house and in the cistern, respectively, showed that the archaeological layers of the cistern contained late Byzantine pottery, which represent the earlier evidence of the occupation of the house, while the bottom layer of the west part of the house began with the Umayyad occupation. Brown in 1998 argued for an aerial occupation early Byzantine of the house. De Vries argued that the house was constructed on a leveled remnant of Roman phase of occupation. In this research, we took samples for radiocarbon dating from several parts of the complex. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 represent the locations of the samples we took. They are mortar and plaster cement materials. Unfortunately, some of them were not of organic, didn't have any organic materials. Others have. These are some locations of the original plaster we found, and here from the mangers also. The radiocarbon dates were very similar. So we said that they represent one stage of occupation or one stage of construction of the site. And this was compared to 425 to 535 AD. So we said that the construction of the house was during this time of the Byzantine period. The date represents the mid-time of the Byzantine period. The result align with the historical and archaeological data indicating that the site flourished during the Byzantine period, which marked an increase in population and construction of large and numerous houses and churches. The house was probably established during this period as a part of a large-scale building program to meet the housing demand for the increasing number of el-Jimal population or to host visitors. Dating churches. I said that the city has 16 churches identified during the surveys and excavations conducted at the site in the past century. The churches were named based on their location in the site: West Church, North Church, Southwest Church, their sites, cathedral, chapel, buildings associated with them, like the Church of the Barracks, and names bearing on inscriptions found within them: Church of Julianus, Church of Numerianus. excluding the Church of Julianus and the cathedral, giving specific dates by inscriptions out of context. The rest of the churches were assigned wider range of dates, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th centuries, based on their architectural styles and comparison with other dated churches in Syria. De Vries in 1985 said that the most of churches of el-Jimal were probably built during the prosperous late Byzantine period. The churches of el-Jimal were constructed in different circumstances. Few churches of freestanding structures, while several of them were built against or inserted between older structures and house complexes, which governed the distribution and size of their architectural elements, number and location of their doors, windows, which makes it illogical to compare them with other churches built in different circumstances or other places. Here I date by radiocarbon dating of mortar and plaster the Southwest Church. The Southwest Church is situated in the southwest part of the archaeological site, hence the name. It is a rectangular basilica formed of a semicircular apse, a chancel screen and a nave flanked by two aisles, which are delimited by two arcades of 3 arches each. It had a flat roof where the two aisles were roofed with slabs of basalt. The floor has incised decoration petals that may have been drawn to guide the setting of the mosaic tessera. It was constructed adjacent to and probably using the foundation and walls of an existing complex of houses, House 2 and 32. As a sequence, the attachment of the church to the complex, the entrances of the church are of peculiar locations, one in the south wall, two in the east wall, and one in the north wall. The church southern wall clearly divides the church structure from the older complex, while its western wall had a door opening into an animal stable equipped with feeding mangers, though it was not the main entrance as other basilicas. The church was classified by Butler into Class 2 churches, the group of churches having 3 aisles with longitudinal system of supports. Accordingly, Butler dated the church to the 5th century AD. As mentioned above, the excavations and the clearance of the church in the past years showed that the church has only 4 main doors and not 5 as suggested by Butler. Therefore, this date of the church should be reconsidered. According to De Vries, the church should be dated to the late Byzantine period. So, for using the radiocarbon dating technique of cement materials, fortunately, there were holes digging by thieves. There were 3 holes, and there were mortars in all the north wall and the apse. So several samples were collected from these 3 trenches and the apse and the seats of the north wall. As you see, the radiocarbon dates of the apse are very similar, 600 to 646. The upper layer of the floor are similar also, 566 to 638. The first trench has 2 floors. An old one was very old or older than the second or the upper one. It goes back to 400 to 500, 337. While the mortars from the seats on the north wall were very old, or older than the rest of the samples. Another sample of charcoal was under this arch. So this was a very good opportunity to see when this arch was collapsed. And the date we gave was younger than the others. It was from the 995 to 1154. Compiling of all of this gives us several phases of construction of the church. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, 4, and separated by historic earthquakes, the 551 and the 749 earthquakes. In total, there are 5 phases for the construction of the Southwest Church. First of all, the construction of older walls and pavement, which was about before 529, mainly after 267. The second phase was the earthquake, which was in 551. Then the construction of the new church was during 566 to 646. So it is most probable that the church was constructed after the destruction of the older house or the older building that was there. After that, the church was destroyed by the earthquake of 749. And the final collapse of the arches and the abandonment of the church was after 995 to 1154. The second example I represent here is the Julianus Church. Do I have time to go with this? Yeah. Okay. So the Julianus Church has a long story. The church was at the beginning dated by Butler to 344 AD. Sorry. And this was based on the Julianus inscription on a lintel he found in the church, laid on the ground of the church. And for that, he said that this inscription is the date of the church at that time. He said that, I have no doubt that this inscription was the original dedicatory inscription set up at the time of the completion of the church. But other scholars didn't agree with him. So Smiths, who was he was working with Butler at the same expedition, argued that there is some doubt whether this inscription should be associated with the original building of the church. Lassus in 1947 agreed with Butler that the church simplicity indicates an early church constructed at that time, but he disagreed with him that the inscription belongs to a tomb. In summer 1957, an expedition of the British School of Archaeology in Jerusalem, directed by Corbett and Reynolds, excavated the Julianus Church to re-examine the evidence of the church history and Butler's date. Corbett and Reynolds concluded that the Julianus inscription was mistakenly associated with the foundation of the church. They found that the lintel of the middle portal of the south wall is in situ, and the width of the door is 2.14 meter, which is very much longer than the length of the inscribed lintel. They uncovered that the upper plaster layer of the nave covers an older mosaic floor, indicating a period of renovation. The excavations and the trench they dug in the church apse uncovered remnants of a chancel screen of secondary used elements, a synthronon of two tiers with two crude coats of a plaster, a central bishop throne with 4 steps and raised seat crudely plastered. The 4th step was recognized as an inscribed stone obviously imported from a cemetery. Corbett Reynolds used this evidence, among others, to support their argument that Julianus' inscription also should have been part of a tomb. They proposed that all these finds indicate their late addition to the apse, probably at the same time of laying the upper floor, hence at least a century after the initial construction of the nave's mosaic floor. In addition, they suggested the beginning of the 5th century AD as a start date for the church construction. De Vries argued that the Corbett date for the Julianus church is too early, and that a late 5th or 6th century date should be more realistic. In 2017, the el-Jimal project cleared the north half of the apse and reopened a Luther's backfilled trench located on the opposite side of Corbett. Sorry, I didn't catch to go with you with the slides. The aim was to document the stratigraphy of the apse, understand the chronological sequence, and collect mortar samples from the synthronal and steps for radiocarbon dating. So what I did with this church, that these are the steps and the thronen that Corbett found here, and the project digged here, and these were sampled. So we went back to where they dig their trench before, but not to the right hand, that was on the left hand. These are the dates we got. And the date says that the construction of the church may be during the 565 to 607 or 625 to 636. And if this is the date of the floor that we dated, the church mosaic should be maybe 100 or something earlier than that. And this gives us 100 before that. So 465, 505 may be a logistic date for the church. For a conclusion, we see that for dating the buildings of el-Jimal, we have several dates, but the churches were mainly dated by the butlers in 1913. Other dates were given also, and here are the radiocarbon dates, which in some reasons are different from others, but they are very similar to the dates given by Butler, but this is not true. It is erratic. So the investigated cement materials represents a good tool for chronological study of the Byzantine architecture at el-Jimal. The technology of cement materials was inherited and lasted for generations. And here we say, for debris, God bless him, and thanks for all these, and for the Acre for having me here also.
Thank you so very much. For the reasons everyone can hear. We will adjourn next door. We thank all of you joining us online. If there are any questions, we will do our best to address them in a chat box for folks. But please, thank you so much. It's truly our pleasure. I can't say I'm surprised to learn that Bert was right about things. And now I hope you'll join us for iftar. Thank you.
Thank you.